Every great world has a past, and not just a list of dates or battles. The best settings feel like they've lived through something: a forgotten war, a vanished civilization, or a divine betrayal that still echoes in today's politics. Hi, I'm Brian, the bearded nerd, where on this podcast we help new players and GMs learn, play, and grow their love of tabletop RPGs. In today's episode, we're diving into the hidden histories of fantasy and sci-fi worlds, how to create those secret past events that give your world depth, tension, and mystery. I'll show you how to design them, when to reveal them, and how to let your players uncover them naturally through play. I'll show you how to avoid dumping the lore on your players and letting your world's history quietly shape what they see, hear, and experience at the table. So without further ado, let's dive into today's episode of the Bearded Nerd Podcast. When recording this episode, I'm not going to lie, I was very biased. As a former historian, now more of an amateur historian, I love history. I think history matters so much in our world. And because it matters so much in our world, it matters in your world. But the history of your world, in my opinion, could and maybe should remain hidden 60 to 70% of the time. A good backstory, right, does not just fill pages. It explains the character. In the same way, a good backstory of your world doesn't just fill those pages. It explains why your world is the way it is, whether the history is hidden or not. Right? That backstory explains why your world is. So, for example, if the dwarves act very distrustful of strangers, you could write simply that the history of that is because they were betrayed by strangers during guest right. So, guest right is typically when guests stay over, there's no weapons, but something must have happened that strangers' guests under this right betrayed the dwarves. So now, because of that, dwarves are bitter. They aren't trusting of people. They're just not trustful, right? So that good backstory, and it's simple, right? It was a couple of sentences. It doesn't have to be a paragraph, but it could if you want. But a straightforward, good backstory can really explain why a situation is the way it is. But again, history influences the present. So when you do this, and this is why you should implement this, your world gains a sense of weight, motivation, and mystery. The weight of the world, it's more of a philosophical weight, right? The cities didn't just appear. They rose, they fell, they were reconstructed, and this is the reasons why, right? It gives them a sense of gravitas. The motivation part is, well, people fight and trade and worship for all sorts of reasons that are rooted in the past. There's pride, right? There's tradition. There is, we just did it the way we've done it for generations. All those reasons are motivation for why the people act the way they do, or in this case, the NPCs, and trickling to your players and their characters. The characters do things the way they do because they were affected by its history, by the world's history. And finally, mystery. Discovering those lost truths is just so satisfying. When your players discover certain truths about the world, there is a level of satisfaction that you as a GM will either see on their face or you'll hear about it after the session. And it is completely rewarding. It's why we all play, to have this satisfying nature or this satisfying feeling of excitement and fun when we play. Think of it like this. Think of it like sediment, right? Each era leaves layers, right? So when players get to dig deep, they can find something that's buried and it feels important to them, right? But they have to dig deep in order to find that thing. So let them dig. And you have to have something there for them to dig, which goes into the next part of this podcast, of this episode. And it is the 3 types of hidden history that you can actually implement starting today. The first one is the buried event. Quite literally, something's buried, right? Something catastrophic, or sacred that shaped the world has been forgotten or maybe even rewritten. So this could be literal buried or this could be figuratively buried. Let's say the gods, once walked the earth, but they sealed themselves away, right? So that's figuratively buried. Maybe there was an ancient kingdom whose name was erased from every record, so things were rewritten, but the physical kingdom vanished, and no one can find it. So that could be also a literal burial of sorts. Those are kind of your quote unquote ghosts that haunt your modern settings. So this is where you have ruins, relics, myths, things of that nature. This one I like because you get into a little bit of the mystery side of RPGs, where you start to become either a seeker and probably I would say you either become a seeker and or a spook, so to speak. I know that's not using the Brennan Lee Mulligan terms of late, but that's really what you become. You become a seeker where you're seeking answers to these questions, and then you are playing the political intrigue, but you're playing more of a spook because it kind of, as a player character, you're probably, going down rabbit holes and you might be bordering that, but hey, as long as you're having fun, who cares? Next is the concealed truth. That's the second type of hidden history. It's something that's powerful, that has a hidden purpose, right? It could be, honestly, it could be something like a noble family's bloodline was forged from rebellion. So the king is not necessarily of royal blood, but of a, rebellion. Yet the civilization was built saying that this person has royal blood dating back from like an ancient line or something like that. So with this example, you would say, okay, well, that's not too bad. But if the civilization has based their entire ethos off the fact that their king descends from godhood or that their king is a god, think of this like Xerxes or most pharaohs had this idea of godhood. The emperor of Japan at one point, pretty much every emperor from Japan, China, Rome, you name it, believed that they were descendants of God or of a god or of a pantheon. So when humans found out that that was not true, you know what happens. People get disposed of quickly. So that concealed truth is one that you can implement really nicely. You could also do this one where the nation's heroes are actually its greatest villains, right? This is very in line with, I would say, The Boys, that comic book and that TV show where the heroes of the modern day are actually more like villains. They're narcissistic, egotistic people. And civilians don't know that. So that's something where you can play with, right? They don't just find this history, though. They begin to challenge the history, where, again, adds another layer of immersion. And third type of hidden history that I like to utilize is the forgotten knowledge. So lost technology, magic, culture, and it's just waiting to be rediscovered. So maybe there's like ancient sky forges that no longer function. Maybe there's a ruin of a city built by people who like mastered a certain technology, like Atlantis, right? This one's great for exploration arcs or just campaigns about rediscovery and progress and whatnot, those heavy themes. Moving along, now we focus on how to build a hidden history. This structure will help you focus on what is important in the building portion of your world. First, deciding what happened. Choose an event, any event that altered the world permanently. Someone suffered. Who was it? Who benefited from that event? Whatever it may be. But ask yourself that question. From there, decide who knows. Does anyone remember it? Are there written records, rumors, or are there a select few people who remember what happened? 3. Decide how it shows up. The best lore appears in pieces. It could be songs, architecture, relics, slang, artwork, whatever it may be, but it has to show up in pieces that the players can build together. And if you have a really smart player, they'll start picking up on the puzzle pieces sooner rather than later. So you're giving that player a little extra oomph, so to speak. And it's really good to reward those smart players as well. Number 4, decide what's at stake. Why does uncovering this matter? And that's probably the most important. Don't do all this work and then think to yourself, what am I doing this for? Instead, you need to think about why this matters. It may threaten current power structures in the world. It can offer forbidden knowledge and lure your players into this false sense of security, which then obviously creates a great time. 3, it changes what's true of the world. So, by doing all this, you're creating players that care about the history when it changes their now, changes their present. Before we end this episode with the last way to reveal hidden history in play, first, I want to thank you for listening to this episode, and I want to thank our sponsor, Dungeon Soap. Dungeon Soap is a fantasy-themed skincare company. They provide handcrafted soaps, beard oils, and other skincare products that are environmentally safe. They're considered vegan and cruelty-free, and they are some of the best quality products out there on the market within the fantasy theme genre, and probably in the competition of organic, vegan, and ethical cruelty-free products. They are made in Austin by my boy Zach. Love the guy, love what he does, love the soap. I personally use the Paladin and the Barbarians, but specifically the Paladin because I love Paladins. Go figure. And it's a great soap. I love it. But by using Bearded 10, you get 10% off your entire order. So if you want to wash your face or other areas of your body so that you don't take D10 stink damage and your friends don't take a D10 of poison damage as well, buy yourself some soap. Treat yourself to some soap, especially some good quality soap. And use Bearded10 to get 10% off your entire order. I will leave a link in the show notes in the description below. But again, thank you for supporting the show either way. I appreciate it. We have talked about the reasons why you should implement. We're going to talk about how to implement now. There are 4 ways to reveal hidden history in play. So you can take this and use it right now. There's environmental storytelling, ruins, murals, broken monuments. They whisper truth. Let the environment speak first. So you're going to describe this narrative scene to your players. Let this really speak first before the NPCs do. It's going to put hooks in your players of interest and intrigue. For example, your party walks into the room, but the room is not a small one. You immediately enter and you feel the grandiose nature of this room. And as your rogue lights torches in the room, the torchlight starts to reflect upon the glass that is above, about 10 feet from your head. The glass contains relics of different saints and clerics of ages gone past. The modern day church and those who preach the word have talked negatively about the relics. But clearly right in front of you, you see beautiful relics of this religion. Right then and there, I just gave an environmental storytelling beat, right? I just evoked some sort of curiosity and some sort of beauty and described it so that you as a player can say, okay, what type of relics do I see? What do they, you can kind of start asking those questions and they can start rolling things if they need to. So again, use the environment. Second, conflicting accounts. Show history through biasness and subjectivity. I started doing this during 2020 when my players really started getting deeper into the world. And ironically, this kind of showed up more when I started playing with my friend Ray. The concept is that every individual has a subjective view on history, but more importantly, every nation, tribe, every faction has a subjective view on history. While some people praise heroes, those same people who are called heroes are viewed as tyrants, right? And then the players must choose what to believe. Now you can go as granular as you want or as generalized. You can leave it be where, like I just stated, the NPCs praise a particular hero and others call them a tyrant and the players have to choose. Okay. Or you can even go, you can go granular, like I stated, and have it be where on day 1, session 0, you state, okay, dwarves, this is your perspective on history, XYZ, right? So for example, when I was playing as Dane Graniteheart, Ray, the GM, told me that, hey, this is how you view things as a dwarf, and there are certain events that occurred, so you're going to be subject to a bit of biasness, and your perspective is this. Boom, 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 right? And in reality, that was a really cool tool. And to this day, Ray reminds people, okay, well, based upon your subject, your perspective, you see this. And it's something I implement now. I think it's just a great tool. So use it, right? That conflicting nature is there. Now, there is going to be objective truth at one point in your game. I don't recommend having 100% subjective truth, because it then gets frustrating because players start to kind of butt heads on what is truth. It's not a good time. I don't recommend it. So just have some sort of objective truth and have the perspectives of those truths be subjective based upon the factions or races or species in your world. Pretty easy, nothing crazy. Third, personal connection. This is where you can tie history to the player's backstory and create a historical thread. Maybe their ancestor helped cause or conceal the event that is now hidden. That would be pretty cool. I'm not going to lie. I would personally use that if I was a player, because that just sounds really, really, or rather, if I was the GM of a particular campaign, I would 100% use that with my players' consent, obviously, because I don't want to blindside them. Again, you don't want to blindside your players. Talk to your player and say, hey, I have an idea. And then talk to them. Would your ancestor do this, or that, related to this event? And then you can kind of build it from there so that your player is surprised. Lastly, artifacts. Artifacts echo certain things. An item, though, you can make it more sentient or quasi-sentient, right? Where the item remembers. It has kind of like an emotion to it. When the sword of your great grandsire, right? Grandfather, your great grandfather is held in your hand, the sword feels warm, almost like a warm embrace, or like, a warm bowl of soup that just enriches your entire body, right? That item remembers your bloodline and it recognizes it. Versus when other people hold the sword, it's cold. It's just metal. They don't understand. But when you grip it, it is being recognized, right? You can have history woven in that, and then you can kind of discover it and go from there. Hidden histories turn your campaign from a story about adventures into a story about the world itself. They give players something to chase, scholars something to argue about, and villains something to hide. So next time you're world building, ask yourself this: what lies buried here, and why does it matter so much? If you want the printable version of this episode's guide with some templates for creating secret events, rumor tables, things like that, you can grab the Hidden Histories Toolkit on Patreon. And for this specific episode, we'll have a couple of random roll tables you can use. However, until next time, y'all, keep building worlds that remember what they've lost. And as always, folks, be kind and compassionate to one another. Thanks for listening, and keep gaming, y'all.